Okay, guys, so the exposure is done. My anxiety went from a 10 to a 10, and that's basically, I'm very happy about that. I'm very thankful about that. Very thankful about that. And I believe it's has to do with obviously it has to do with God. I believe in God. I also believe it has to do with waking up every day and doing these exposures, even though there's some days you don't want to. Even though there's some days you're like, I'll just watch TV instead of doing this exposure, or I'll just don't make an exposure today, and I'll just just eat what my anxiety feels it's okay to eat. Right, just let my anxiety dictate my life. So these are things that I believe contribute to a 10 rather than a 70 or an 80 like in my earlier videos. And one more thing I want to say is this whole a 10 is the peak. I started at a 10, I ended at a 10, therefore the 10 is the peak. If that doesn't make any sense, remember what he was saying in the video? Your anxiety should go up. Your anxiety should go up, and then it plateaus and it begins to fall back down. That's exactly what is happening. It's doing my body is being almost in a way trained or retrained every day to accept that a 70 for simply eating some food, right? Well, I guess watching the YouTube videos and just sitting, I guess, is not tenable is the right word. It's not tenable. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Human body is not designed to be at such levels of anxiety for long periods of time. That's why we are the most dominant species on the planet, because we have learned to allow our anxiety to come down. Over time, our ancestors realized that they would be unable to hunt, therefore unable to survive, if all they did was be scared of everybody, big animal and lions and tigers. So eventually the body adapted, right? And now we have anxieties, and we need to we have anxieties. The solution though is that we have anxieties, as we always have. The difference between, I guess, the ancient people who, like the Cro-Magnon people who had anxieties, and us is that we evolved to the point where we can actually I guess the best word is to allow our anxieties to be lowered through facing them, through, in modern a modern terminology would mean through exposure. Okay. That's that. Apologize if I'm too dark. I mean, it's nighttime here. I need to pray first. I woke up quite late today. That's an understatement. I mean, I woke up around 3. I think the main reason is
I mean, the main immediate reason is, like the primary immediate reason is because of a pill I took that I've been prescribed. It's supposed to help me with the, you know, problems I have. Like, for example, the fact that I hear voices and see and hear things that other people maybe more than likely probably don't hear. I mean, through these videos, during these videos, I have hallucinated. You know, I mean, I've heard things, and you get used to it after a while. And I know, I for the most part, I know, like, I've tried recording them, and they don't show up in video really. I haven't done it like I guess like I'm going to do it. Rather, I'd kind of just, you know, maybe do a video or something, and then, you know, I think, hey, you know, I didn't hear anything in the video, therefore, I mean, from anybody but myself, right? I mean, it's hard to explain. What I'm trying to say is that when I'm making a video and I didn't hear, and I play it back, I don't hear, you know, any other voice of mine, obviously means the hallucinations are not real, right? Or they're not. Hard to say. I don't know. So this pill, though, one of the nasty side effects of it is makes you go to sleep real fast. I mean, within 45 minutes, you're gonna want to sleep. I mean, you're gonna want to sleep. It depends on how much you take of it, and like, you know, if it's extended release or not. If it's an extended release Seroquel capsule, you might have a bit more time to, for example, you know, do things before you start feeling this overwhelming desire to just shut your eyes, crawl into bed, and just, you know. So it's not a pill I recommend. You know, I used to take it regularly. Now I take it, you know, I've kind of been torn as to what I should do now. I used to take it regularly since I've been prescribed it, and then I stopped taking it for a while, and then it kind of stopped taking it altogether, and that wasn't a good idea. Like, a doctor has prescribed it, so I need to consult with him any sort of, like, if I want to change the dosage. I have to talk with him. Although I am experimenting a little bit, which I don't want to do. I mean, not that I don't advocate. I've been taking this pill for 2 years, so I kind of know a little bit about it. I know there are harmful side effects for discontinuing abruptly, and there's also side effects for for taking it on a regular basis. So, for example, some of the side effects for taking it on a daily basis are, you need to be blood tested on a regular basis to make sure you don't have, like, diabetes. There's increased weight gain, huge weight gain when you take this medication. I told you guys before, I was like 210. I was up there. I was like 230 pounds at one point. Right now, I think I'm around 130. And so you gain a lot of weight when you take that medication. You crave sweets. It's like I don't know what happens to your brain. You just begin to crave sweets a lot. A lot. I remember I'd go grocery shopping. I'll come home with, like, first of all, after grocery shopping, I go to the donut store. So I get 2 big things of donuts, plus all the candy and stuff I got grocery shopping. I get, like, chocolate bars. I get, like, those little candies that are like, you get, like, Swedish fish, stuff like that. You know, like the candy that's like, what do they make? What do they call it? It's like gel I don't know. It's like, I don't know, what is candy made out of? Whatever it's made out of, I'd eat that. Texture. So many things. Caramel corn I'd eat. A lot of, like, brownies and snack cakes, and a lot of snack cakes, and just cake, and lots of, you really like sweets when you take Seroquel. Now, so those are the main side effects for taking it regularly. Some of the main side effects for taking it, like, on a, I guess you could say, symptomatic basis, or on a basis where, like, you take it and then you stop taking it, and you take it and you stop taking it, or, for example, you have brain zaps. which is like, I'm not sure how to explain it. I haven't really had it that much. It's something I've never really heard it. It's just something I'm putting out there. I don't know what it is. It's just called brain zaps. I don't know how to even, like, I don't know if I've even experienced it. What I've experienced though, while not taking it just recently, is one of the main symptoms. No, let's not start there. One of the symptoms I've realized while not taking it on a regular basis is you do have thoughts about suicide. They just come to you. This is with any antidepressant. If you stop taking an antidepressant on a regular basis, you'll have these thoughts of suicide. I mean, I would like to say I'm not suicidal. Like, I don't have a plan to kill myself. And I really believe these are chalked up to just simply not taking your medication, as prescribed. Which is a common problem for people who take this medication. I mean, at least I believe there is a big problem for people who have been prescribed Seroquel and other medications like it. They're known as antipsychotics. In terms of taking them regularly, people don't take them regularly. There's a word for it. It's like non-compliance with medication, something like that. And I even told this doctor once I wasn't taking it regularly. He just looked at me like, yeah, I understand. It's a very powerful pill. And he says that I understand. Like, I understand the fact that you don't take it on a regular basis. I can understand that because of just how powerful it is. It's a very powerful pill. I mean, as I said, I woke up at 3 p.m. today. I took it around 11 or 12 p.m. and I slept for 15 hours. Yeah, that's right. 15. I think I didn't have work today. 15 hours, guys. And I have, for guys say, well, how do I work taking this medication? It's so powerful. Well, I do. I mean, what I usually do is, for example, I don't know if this is something I do usually. I've done this once. I didn't take it for about, I'm not sure, maybe a prolonged period of time, 3 days maybe more. Then I took it again, and I had to go to work the next day, and I felt horrible. I mean, you feel like you've gained 50 pounds. You just can't move. You literally, today I was trying to get out of bed. I just could not move. I felt like my legs were just, there was like sand on them or something. I just couldn't move out of it. And so when you're working, like, I know, for example, I got a Coke, I got a muffin, a chocolate chip muffin, and a donut, simply because I wanted to stay awake. It wasn't like necessarily because I wanted to eat them. It was more because I wanted to stay awake. I knew if I didn't take these medications, I would probably just not. I would be like, there's a possibility I could. I'm probably being a bit dramatic, and there is a possibility that I could fall asleep at the wheel. I mean, more importantly though, I think it would just be I would become less motivated, because after about like maybe an hour, I'd just be like, I'm really tired, and I'd probably like maybe after 2 hours, I think an hour, maybe 2 hours. Depending on how good I feel, I'd probably just be like, let's call it a day, and I'd just go back home and stay in bed. So it's not a good medication to take. I mean, it's not a good medication to take. I'm trying to actually think of when I was prescribed it. I was in the emergency room at the hospital, and they gave me Ativan. This is for, I was just confused because I was hallucinating. They gave me Ativan, also because I basically screamed in the hospital I was raped. And so, they didn't really know what to do, because there was no psychologist on station at the time, I guess. They just gave me an Ativan, and a counselor kind of just talked to me for a bit, and then, I guess I was prescribed Seroquel by a doctor afterwards, after I was discharged. So, and that was my big beginning with Seroquel. I've been taking it ever since. It's probably the medication I've been taking for the longest. I've been prescribed many medications, for example, Prozac, Zoloft, right? Prozac was the second longest I've taken. I think Seroquel is the longest medication I've taken. If we're only talking about medications for your mental health. I do take a medication for my physical health because I have high production of acid reflux. And I do understand how there is a relationship between stress and anxiety and acid reflux, right? I mean, you would experience acid reflux if you have a high level of anxiety. People say your stomach is in knots. It's like that, except it reaches a level where you need to take medication to stop it, because you'll get nauseous, you'll get very have a dull pain in your stomach. It's you could feel sometimes, even with people who have choking phobia, that specific choking phobia, it's even worse because you can feel the acid going up your digestive tube, and you think there's food there, and then you start thinking I'm choking, right? It's actually horrible. You need to do a lot of research in terms of like what is the symptoms of acid reflux versus the symptoms of like choking versus the symptoms of heart attacks. And it was a bit stressful for me at the beginning to realize that it is acid reflux and I'm not choking. And with time, you just get used to it. Your body gets used to it. That doesn't mean you should not stop doing exposures. If I did exposures back then, up till now, I would be much better because I would have also have acclimated to the fact that acid reflux is not choking. I've acclimated to that fact. I just need to acclimate to the fact that, choking phobia is not as anxiety provoking as it should be to you, right? To me or to anybody that has any sort of specific phobia or any sort of anxiety disorder. Exposure therapy really is good for most anxiety disorders. Got this book again. Now stop worrying and start living. Time-tested methods for conquering worry. I don't know if I'm going to read the chapters today because I just don't feel like it. We could talk about what he was talking about, which I really do, because he was talking about, remember what he said? He said in the video, don't wish for the anxiety to go away, wish for it to be more. Wish for it to be more. Because you need to feel that anxiety to get better. You need to feel that, fear, that dread, feeling you're gonna die, your heart's in your stomach's in knots, all those. You need to feel that to allow your anxiety to go up. Because once it goes up, it will inevitably go down. There's no one in the history of anxiety, in the history of the human race, that has had anxiety go up to a prolonged, heightened period of time, and stay there without, you could say, it going down. It will go down. This is something I've heard from this is the consensus. I was going to say I've heard this from 2 therapists that I've known. This is the consensus of, I would say, all therapists. Anxiety, once it starts going up, the only place it will go is down. As I said earlier, this is an evolutionary response, having to do with just the fact that we as people can't run our lives being the dominant species on this planet and also being anxious. So we've developed, you could say, this mechanism within us that actually causes our anxiety to, right, what did he say in the video, go away? Basically go away or go down to a level that's more manageable. This is something that does happen. I've experienced it many, many times. In these videos, this is what the whole purpose of these videos is, to document it, show it to people that it can be done, and that it is getting done, and that this is not like a fake. You know how some people say anxiety is fake, or psychology is fake? Like Tom Cruise, for example, he says psychology is fake. I don't believe it's fake. There may be some things with anxiety that may be troubling and problematic and definitely need to be addressed. To just say anxiety or psychology is fake, that's not true. just patently not true. It's just patently false. There's too much information to say it's false. Right? For one to say anxiety is not real. It doesn't mean people don't get taken advantage of. And it doesn't mean the word anxiety is not overused in this society. It simply means if you do the work as outlined in the psychological model of I don't know, the human mind or of our consciousness, you will get the results promised by the psychologist. Okay, we could. Sorry, I'm just gonna actually. You guys need to see me. Apologize. I've been taking my medication regularly for about 3 months, 4 months maybe. And so when you do take it, you get really, really super, super tired because your body isn't used to it. Your body develops a tolerance after a while to a medication. So when you take Seroquel on and off, your body will have to readjust itself again because you're just taking it for such long periods of time. So, and I didn't expect myself to really have today happen like it was going to happen today. It really shows you the powerfulness of tranquilizers and medication in general. Just the sheer power of this little tablet. It's maybe this big, right? This big. Yet it can control one's destiny. One could say it can change your entire plan for a day or 2 days. Who knows? I know it takes me at least a day and a half to stop feeling the effects of the pill, and then by day 2, I'm fairly good. I mean, if I had work, I would go. Just load up on a lot of sugar and just go. And yeah, that's what I've realized. I mean, as I said before in this video, if you take it regularly, you won't have those problems. I want to talk to my doctor about not taking it as regularly now because I don't think it helps. It's so how do I explain it? Well, it's like, I don't know, it's like, I mean, it's good that it's out there and that it can actually stop hallucinations for people who hallucinate. I have to talk to my doctor about it. I don't know what else to say. I need to do more research on it as well in terms of what it does to the human brain and the biochemistry. Like, I've heard a lot of people say different things about it from my community in terms of my culture. Like, I don't know if community is the right word. Like, I do consider them my community, even though I don't really know if they would consider me from their community. Because, I mean, once they find out, if they find out, not once they find out, if they find out, I'm, bisexual. So, that being said, I've heard in my community that taking Seroquel is like bad. It's a bad medication. All medications are bad. Not necessarily Seroquel, but not necessarily Seroquel. Every medication is a bad medication, they would say. Oh, don't take this, don't take all the Prozacs and all the stuff, the kuffar, right? The unbelievers, non-Muslims are prescribed to keep our people weak and stuff. That's basically the consensus of I would say at least 40% of Muslims. 40% of Muslims would attribute anxiety to the devil, and would believe that through just more prayer and more basically more prayer and more faith, and through, I guess, defeating the devil, your anxiety will get lower. right? And you don't need to take medications or even follow any sort of psychological treatment advice, because it's all from the unbelievers, and it's all going to keep us weak, and it's untrue. And it may even come to like envy, like, hey, they have the solutions and we don't, type of thing. Maybe even a bit of envy, like, oh, why are they so rich and we're so poor? And we used to have an empire spreading from Spain to India. So. Which is really immature. Think about it. I mean, you should follow the truth wherever it is. I mean, it's not even like Islamic, I'd say, because I mean, I don't want to get into this Islamic discussion, so let's move on. Psychology. So that's my video. I don't know what else to really talk about. I mean, we could flip through the Dale Carnegie book. If you guys remember what we talked about yesterday, the Garden of Allah, and how this guy looked at it as fatalism, simply because you, I guess, are okay with troubles happening in your life. And I don't think you really realize that fatalism, if you want to call it fatalism, I wouldn't call it fatalism. Let's just call it fatalism, because I don't want to get into the whole discussion of it. Fatalism, if you want to call it fatalism, is something that's learned over a long period of time from a culture. It's learned through a culture that has been dealt a bad blow, a bad hand, dealt a fatalistic hand in a way. Well, like, for example, look at the people, these Bedouins in Arabia, where this guy went to in the book, right? He went to a place where there were sandstorms so powerful the sand would end up in France. So they're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and this sand would end up in France. That's how horrible the sandstorms are. So it just tells you, these people developed this idea of, we can't control the weather. It's going to control us. So all we can do is just accept it. It's the will of God, right? Makhtub, as they say, it is written. And basically kismet, right? This destiny we just have to all believe in. Because imagine, look at the people in Florida, right? They get hurricanes all the time, and a lot of people evacuate, and some people don't. So why do some people evacuate and some people don't? The ones that don't, they truly believe they're going to live, right? And that's not based on any scientific fact. It's based on simple, just like, hey, we can't control the weather, we just got to keep doing our lives. Not realizing that, we could take active measures to save ourselves from the situation. And so I'm wondering, would this guy mentioned in this book call those people fatalists as well, right? Because they're basically going in the path of a hurricane, just like these people in the desert are, not, for example, freaking out at the fact that they're stuck in a sandstorm and they're out of gas, right? And the most logical answer they come up with is, let's just walk the rest of the way, right? So it's very interesting how people of different mindsets act differently to the same thing. Alright, let's do a chapter. Let's do one of these other short stories. Alright, let's do this one. Well, let's just do them sequentially. It doesn't really matter. These are true stories, by the way. At least that's what they're saying. Alright, let's go to the first one. This one is called 6 Major Troubles Hit Me All at Once by C.I. Blackwood. It's 1, 2, 3. It's about 2.5 pages. So, let's read. 6 major troubles hit me all at once. In the summer of 1943, it seemed to me that half the worries of the world had come to rest on my shoulders. For more than 40 years, I had lived a normal, carefree life with only the usual troubles which come to a husband, father, and businessman. I could usually meet those troubles easily. But suddenly, wham, 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 wham. 6 major troubles hit me all at once. I pitched and tossed and turned in bed all night long, half praying to see the day come because I faced these 6 major worries. 1. My business college was trembling on the verge of financial disaster because all the boys were going to war and most of the girls were making more money working in war plants without training than my graduates could make in business office with training. 2. My older son was in service and I had the heart-numbing worry common to all parents whose sons were away at war. 3. Oklahoma City had already started proceedings to condemn a large tract of land for an airport, and my home, formerly my father's home, was located in the center of this tract. I knew that I would be paid only 1/10 of its value, and what was even worse, I would lose my home. And because of the housing shortage, I worried about whether I could possibly find another home to shelter my family of 6. I feared we might have to live in a tent. I even worried about whether we would be able to buy a tent. 4. The water well on my property went dry because a drainage canal had been dug near my home. To dig a new well would be throwing $500 away because the land was already being condemned. I had to carry water to my livestock in buckets every morning for 2 months, and I feared I would have to continue it during the rest of the war. 5. I lived 10 miles away from my business school and I had a Class B gasoline card. That meant I couldn't buy any new tires, so I worried about how I could ever get to work when the superannuated tires on my old Ford gave up the ghost. 6. My oldest daughter had graduated from high school a year ahead of college. She had her heart set on going to college, and I just didn't have the money to send her. I knew her heart would be broken. One afternoon, while sitting in my office worrying about my worries, I decided to write them all down, for it seemed no one ever had more to worry about than I had. I didn't mind wrestling with worries that gave me a fighting chance to solve them, but these worries all seemed to be utterly beyond my control. I could do nothing to solve them. So I filed away this typewritten list of my troubles, and as the months passed, I forgot that I had ever written it. 18 months later, while transferring my files, I happened to come across this list of my 6 major problems that had once threatened to wreck my health. I read them with a great deal of interest and profit. I now say that not one of them had come to pass. Here's what had happened to them. 1. I saw that all my worries about having to close my business college had been useless because the government had started paying business schools for training veterans, and my school was soon filled to capacity. 2. I saw that all my worries about my son in service had been useless. He was coming through the war without a scratch. 3. I saw that all my worries about my land being condemned for use as an airport had been useless because oil had been struck within a mile of my farm and the cost of procuring the land for an airport had become prohibitive. 4. I saw that all my worries about having no well to water my stock had been useless because as soon as I knew my land would not be condemned, I spent the money necessary to dig a new well to a deeper level and found an unfailing supply of water. 5. I said that all my worries about my tires giving out had been useless because by recapping and careful driving, the tires had managed somehow to survive. 6. I said that all my worries about my daughter's education had been useless because just 60 days before the opening of college, I was offered, almost like a miracle, an auditing job which I could do outside of school hours, and this job made it possible for me to send her to college on schedule. I had often heard people say that 99% of the things we worry and stew and fret about never happen. But this old saying didn't mean much to me until I ran across that list of worries I had typed out that dreary afternoon 18 months previously. I am thankful now that I had to wrestle in vain with those 6 terrible worries. That experience has taught me the lesson I'll never forget. It has shown me the folly and tragedy of stewing about events that haven't happened, events that are beyond our control and may never happen. Remember, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Ask yourself, how do I know this thing I'm worrying about will really come to pass? That's really interesting. Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Ask yourself, how do I know this thing I'm worrying about will really come to pass? This is a very interesting one. This is a very simple and classic one. Excuse me, let me just drink a bit of Pepsi here. Very good. Okay. So this guy, what can we learn from this story? Number one, when you have worries or anxieties, one of the best things to do is write them down. When you write down your worries, you'll realize you have control over them. Once you write them down, what's stopping you from crumpling them up and throwing them in the trash? And once you do that, doesn't that make you feel at least somewhat happy for just a tiny bit of time? Right? And who knows what it does to your subconscious? That, I've heard from YouTube, this woman online, her name is Katie Morton. She talks about doing this, obviously doing the work of anxiety and phobias and whatever. Also, sometimes it just doesn't hurt to just write down your worries and crumple them up in a box or whatever, or crumple them up and throw them out. She says it helps. It makes you feel better. So, and it's safe. It's not like a harmful thing to do. So, all right. So, this guy, he did the same thing. He wrote down all his worries. He wrote them down because he wrote them down because he thought, as he said in his own words, no other person, let me see his exact quote here. No one ever had more to worry about than I had. That's his direct quote. No one ever had more to worry about than I had. That's the mindset of someone who has anxiety and phobias. And to justify writing down your thoughts because no one ever has had the worries that you've had. Don't even let it get to that point. Write down your thoughts as much as you can. It's very important to write them down, flesh them out, sharpen them. What did you really mean when you thought that, right? So that's very important. For specific phobias like choking phobia, or flying phobia, or driving phobia, or dog phobia, right? You ask yourself, how many times have I been a victim of choking, or a victim of a plane crash, or a victim of a automobile crash, or a victim of whatever it was that was your last fear. I think it was a bee sting. How many times has it happened? Right? Write that down. Write that number down. And then maybe what you could do is maybe write down why you think that number is right, or why you think that number is wrong, or justify that number in your head. If it's 1, say why was it 1? If it's 0, say why was it 0? Right? If it's 10 or 15, right? Basically write the number down, and then write like a statement defending that number. Why'd you write that number? Like, why not? Why'd you say 7 instead of 3? So it's very important. I've heard this said a lot. It's something people do that have phobias and anxieties. They do thought records. It's kind of like a journal. It's a very structured journal, though. You basically start with like a description of what you're doing or what happened, basically. For example, I'll give you an example of a woman who had I got this example from a YouTube psychologist who was explaining thought records. So a thought record example could be, for the first column could be, you just take out a sheet of paper, you write down the first column, you divide it into like 5 sections. First column is what happened. right? So the example given was a woman is at home and her boyfriend is late coming home from work, and she sees on the news that there was a car accident on the highway, and perhaps that's the reason he's late for work, because of the accident, right? So that's what happened. The second is the hot thought. What is the thought in your head right now that you want to, I guess, change, or the thought you think it could be, you just is the one that's just really bothering you right now, is hot. And for example, it could be my boyfriend is dead, right? Next thought is basically after that you take that thought and then you also rate it on a scale of 1 to 100, right? How much do you believe that thought? 100? Let's go with 100. 90? Go 90. The example I given, I think it was, there's different ways of doing the thought record. Some people rate it, and some people just write down the thought. Let's just go with the ratings. Let's just go with writing down the thought and go to the next column. You could just also rate your general feeling of whatever fear you're feeling. Next column would be your thinking errors. What thinking error, right? Pull up a list of, there's about, I think, 10 or 12 thinking errors people make on a daily basis. Part-hole thinking, for example, saying that just because, a woman cut you off, women are bad drivers, right? Catastrophizing, for example, thinking that, I'm not sure, there's a lot of overlap with them, but a good example I would say is like making a mountain out of an anthill, right? Something that's really small, like you were late for work for 15 minutes and you think your boss is going to fire you, when in reality maybe he just disciplined you or was maybe perhaps even very understanding, right? So that's a it's called catastrophizing. There's many others. For example, there's negative thinking, which is where you just always look at the negative of things. You're like a glass half empty type of thing, and you don't really look at the positives in life. For example, you think, oh, my life is bad and there's no good in it. I do that a lot. Other ones, there's mind reading is one where, like, especially for people who have social phobia, they would walk into a store and they think, oh, everyone is judging me, everyone is thinking about me, everyone is going to say something nasty to me, right? And they're all watching my every move, right? That's mind reading. How could you possibly know that? Another one is like crystal ball, right, type of thing, where you just, I think it's the same thing, where you think you have like a crystal ball and you just know what's gonna happen and how you're gonna react. For example, you're gonna go on a presentation and you're gonna faint. You just know, you have a crystal ball, you're gonna faint when you do a presentation in front of a lot of people. So the error in thinking you want to address. There's one more I was thinking, forgot about. Let me think. Catastrophizing, and then there was like mind reading, magical thinking, right? Which I don't know if I really agree with. It is there though. This idea, for example, praying before you do an exposure is considered magical thinking. Well, I know prayer. I don't know exactly if that's considered. That would be considered like a crutch. Psychologists would more recommend you do relaxation exercises, and magical thinking is more like prayer, just simply prayer. That's an example of magical thinking. It's basically, just believing magically that I don't know, somehow your life will just get better. Right? It's kind of like denial, one might say. I'm a psychologist, might say. So then you write down one of those. Then you write down your alternative thought. Like, once you've realized you've made that thinking error, well, what's the thought now? It could be, my boyfriend's cell phone died instead, or right, he is caught up in traffic because of an accident on the highway. He's not the victim of it, right? God forbid, something like that. You write a thought like that once you realize your error. In this case, it would be catastrophizing, right? You're catastrophizing. You're thinking the worst, that because there's my boyfriend's late and there's an accident on the freeway, he must have been the one that died. And the next call I'll hear from the police, right? And then the last, I guess, column is your rating now, right? So actually, I misspoke. You do a rating with your first, when you do the first hot thought, then you rate that again when you realize the thinking error you've done, right? And you write down, oh, my boyfriend's cell phone died, or there was a car accident, and he is the one who perhaps maybe been delayed because of the car accident and the traffic jam on the highway, right? That's the alternative thought. You rate how much you believe that, right? So let's say in the beginning you rated my boyfriend's dead. That thought's like 100. Then after you do the whole record, you see maybe you know, that thought I don't believe as much. I may believe his cell phone's dead. So I believe these new thoughts, you know, I believe them. How much do I believe them? 40-50%, right? You still believe your boyfriend's dead, but you still believe your boyfriend's dead. You've allowed yourself though to parse that thought out, write it down, look at the negatives and positives of it, the evidence of it, and come up with new thoughts and rate those thoughts, right? And that's a thought record. And so in the example, what actually happened was her boyfriend did come late because of the car accident on the highway causing a traffic jam. He wasn't the victim of it. You know, he was simply, you know, I guess caught up in the traffic jam. So that's a great way of allowing yourself to see how much evidence is in your thoughts, right? It's a thought record. It's very important because documenting or writing down your thoughts, as this person did in the book here, right, allows yourself to see how true those thoughts are, right? Now, I don't think he did that. He didn't do a thought record. He just wrote down his worries. Not very helpful, except for the fact that, you know, it's good. It's a good place to start. If you just write down your worries and then throw them in a box like this guy did, and look at them again 18 years later, that's a good story. It's not. I mean, you're gonna have to do more than that if you have clinical levels of anxiety. I mean, this book was written at a time when these things aren't considered as relevant or as real as they are now. And I don't want to put a value judgment on that statement. I believe anxiety is used way more now than it has been in the past. It's overused. I also believe that back in the day, people did not take anxiety as seriously as they should have. And it allowed, I use the word should. I don't like using that word. I mean, let me rephrase that. What I'm trying to say is, back in the day, they thought you could just walk off all anxiety symptoms, and if you can't, they should remand you into a mental hospital, because there's huge shame involved with it. Nowadays is the exact opposite. There needs to be a happy balance between overprescription and overmedication and over-institutionalization and under medication, right? Under institutionalization, right? We can't have it both ways. So this book was first written in 1944, right? So, right when the World War II was ending, right? I mean, that's a long time from now. That's a very, very, very long time from now. So we got to remember that. So obviously, I don't think he really was privy to thought records. I'm not sure when they came out. I think they came out a bit later, probably in the 60s, after the whole Freud and hippie movement and the whole, after America stopped being at war, there was this huge, scientific government impetus to learn more and be it was like a golden age for America at that time, causing increased research in science, literacy, math, art, and one of the side effects and byproducts of that was the introduction of the thought record, I believe. So look at the good places I need to stop. Alright. Stop here. Give him a 10. Stay to a 10. Was it 11? Was it an 11? No, it was actually... Oh, a couple things I want to say. It was actually wasn't 11 the first time I did it, and then I had to redo the video, and when I did it again, it was a 10. Just want to like to get that out of the way. I like to be very truthful in my videos. I don't like to be... Like, this is me. This is not me putting up a front. This is me unedited, unaltered. Second thing is full disclosure. I ate a couple things earlier before I did the exposure. I ate some chips, some cheese, some chocolate. Like, it's just kind of like about ranging from about, you know, just during the day, you know, just during the day I ate these things. Like, I had some chips, you know, a little earlier. Then, you know, had some a little bit later when I woke up. Chocolate I had basically late afternoon or afternoon yesterday. And Coke, of course. I need to drink more water. It reminds me. Like, anyway, remember, so it went from a 10 to it went from a 10 to a 10. We're plateauing, and I think we're going to transition more into learning more about psychology in general and shifting away from exposure. Although I still do want to do exposures every day. They're not going to be eliminated ever. I just think I used to spend like 30-40 minutes on exposure. I mean, I still think that's a good number to, you know, that number is a number that's would be considered acceptable. I also believe that much more time could be spent talking not just about my specific phobias. Wait, now I'm not sure what I'm saying. I'm basically saying I want to make my videos better. I don't know exactly how. I want to basically share more what's on the internet about these things and share more, you know, information about psychology. And I will still continue to make these videos every day, except for Saturday, and we'll make the exposure videos. I also want to just say, I think that's it. I think we're just gonna leave it at this. Let me try to think of anything else I want to say. I think we're good. We're gonna stay with it.